Hello, Mallards. It is Monday, and Megan and I just went to see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And we enjoyed it. Lundy
was not there.
Would have maybe liked it because there were a lot of animals, but maybe wouldn't have liked it. I will say that Megan maybe has a contentious relationship with Sean Gunn now because he was mean to a dog.
Yeah, there was a lot of animal abuse. The lesser of which was Sean Gunn calling Cosmo a bad dog, but still.
But arguably the most hurtful in the whole thing, you know, had a lot of lasting impact. It upset Howard the Duck. And do you know how much it takes to upset Howard the Duck?
I think it annoyed Howard the Duck more than anything else. Lundy would have loved this movie.
You would have. We thoroughly enjoyed the film. It centers around Rocket Raccoon story. Spoilers ahead for Guardians Volume 3. So if you haven't seen it, don't watch this.
It centers around Rocket's backstory, but it doesn't center around Rocket as like a character. Like you get a lot of backstory, I suppose, and like
it's like
some flashback
Rocket's
scenes.
Origin, but the film is sort of in two parts. Rocket is dying, and so one part is the Guardians doing all of the things to try and save Rocket, and the other part is Rocket's dying brain replaying his like life flashing before his eyes sort of situation.
Yeah.
But it turns out that when Rocket's life flashes before his eyes, none of it's Peter Quill. And I wonder how Peter would feel about that, considering he calls Rocket his best friend.
Well, it's interesting that you thought of it as like a flashing, like a life flashing before his eyes. And I guess the last scene in the movie kind of does
lend itself that way.
But there's a middle scene where the Guardians are caught up on what happened to him by like watching his file and like reading his file. And I find,
sorry for the dog interruption.
And I find that it's implied that like some of the flashbacks they're seeing are the visualization of like what's in the file. Like the scene that was playing right before that, right before they're like looking at the file documents. The way that edit is done and the way that transition is done makes it seem like the Guardians just saw all the scenes we'd seen, which means it wouldn't be like in his brain.
But it definitely, the Guardians wouldn't be seeing all the scenes that we'd seen because like that file wouldn't have had all of his like touching, naming themselves scenes.
But
and,
it had
like
the
that.
It
had the experiments.
being done, which is what some of those scenes were. So
yeah, but it did really feel like to me, especially because in the ending you see Rocket in a like white plane, getting to see all of his friends who have already passed on. And so it really did feel like a little bit like life flashing before his eyes. And like I said, Peter Quill spends the whole movie being like, this is my best friend. Rocket Raccoon is my best friend. And Rocket was dying and didn't even think twice about him.
I mean, that we know of. It's one interpretation, one Peter Quill hating interpretation.
Yeah, I might not
against
be the biggest
another.
fan of Peter Quill.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the one scene in the film that I think that I didn't like was probably that last, like, in the white space scene. I get why it was there, but I think it felt a lot less mature than the rest of the film felt. It felt like something that like would be in a children's movie that was like, it was especially he's going into the light.
But he can't, because it's not his time.
And then the other character being like, but not yet. Was like, okay, well that was cheese whiz on a cracker, like, my goodness. But other than that scene, I think that it was really, really well, like, edited and put together. And that scene was edited in with them saving him in a way that was to maximize, like, tension. I just didn't like it.
I think it was really well put together. I really enjoyed, and when we walked out, I said, my impression of this is that I enjoyed this, and that also, I feel like this film treated every single character very well.
Yeah.
And, like, stayed true to who they are at their core, which has not always been the case for all of the films, in that Marvel has a tendency to completely ignore its titled female characters, or even its titled female characters. You know this from watching my Quantumania review.
Say just but straight white characters.
Does anybody? Oh, well, that's.
I was gonna say like the straight white man gets a lot of attention, and like every other character just like, bends to the plot that centers around that man. Yeah. And so they are what they need to be in the series, which is my problem with Guardians.
Problem with female characters, even in the films that don't center a straight white man. Mm-hmm. And they still have that problem in a lot of films, as mentioned in my Quantumania review, where I said, wow, look at this great opportunity to give Hope Van Dyne any character development. Did anybody do that? No, they did not. Can you tell me a single thing about Hope Van Dyne besides who she is related to? Go ahead. Leave it in the comments. Anything from the MCU that is not, like, anything about Hope Van Dyne that does not say something about another character. I will take her favorite food. Like, tell me anything you know about her. It drives me up a wall. She's the secondary title in that. But I feel like this film was truly an ensemble film in a way that
they sometimes struggle with.
Yeah, that they sometimes struggle with. And that Guardians 1 and 2, like, was trying to but didn't quite get there.
Yeah, like, I think it's been a slow progression of doing better. Like, the first film... I mean, my problem with Gamora in the MCU, which they've now fixed, is that she was nothing like herself and was just cast as Star-Lord's love interest. And they said, who in the MCU could we make a romantic interest? All right, let's make this person that. Like, most people... And I feel like a lot of the other MCU films have this problem where they're just... A lot of people are plot devices, not characters. Like, there will be 1 to 3 characters in each MCU film, and then everyone else in that universe is a plot device. And I think that that's why we get so hyped when what's his name? My brain wants to call him Phil Collins. Is that right? That's
Agent Coulson.
That's not Phil Collins. It's Phil Collins. It's like,
it is Phil Coulson.
You knew who I meant.
Yeah.
Phil Collins is like the Tarzan guy.
Yes, he is.
I feel like that's why people get excited when he shows up, because he, like, has character development in all the things he's in.
Yes.
And you, like, know who he is as a character. So when he shows up, even if he's showing up for, like, a plot fix
and I would
reason,
say that, luckily, like, Maria Hill has also gotten to grow that by, like, appearing in other things.
But the actress who plays Robin, whose name I can't remember.
No, that is her. She's Maria Hill. But Megan hasn't watched a lot of the TV series. So she doesn't know that Maria Hill is popping up.
I've seen some of S.H.I.E.L.D. and I've seen, like, has she had movie appearances?
Yeah.
Like 1 or 2?
Mm-hmm. And that's where she's originally from.
She's just around, but she's not interesting at all. They don't do anything with her, but I guess maybe now they do. So maybe they're just getting better at using... at not using characters, just having
they're getting better at, like, having actual characters instead of just background people.
And we spent a long time talking about how the MCU is transitioning away from being, like, action movies, and kind of the genre of the films changes, and the thing that ties them together is Marvel comic characters, and I feel like them being character pieces is a good move. It's not necessarily the lucrative move that everyone's going to immediately understand. So I'm sure that's why Phase 4 has been so bumpy. But I like the direction better because I don't particularly like action movies. And
and I honestly think that there is a lot of potential and that they just need to, like, embrace the way that this is going. This film... A lot of people have been like, this is finally a Phase 4 film that feels like the MCU, which is true because this film is really the finale for the Guardians. Like, it is not part of Phase 4 in the larger sense of Phase 4.
Well, Phase 4 isn't really got a larger sense, and I think that's what people have a problem with, is that they're just the direction the studio's going in right now. It's just tying up loose ends and making new fun movies, not plotting out some big epic thing again yet. Maybe they will eventually, but they've got to make some characters first. Yeah. And this wasn't making characters. It was tying up loose ends. And I think that's maybe why I didn't like the, like, well, you're not needed yet thing, is that this was the end of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and they set up a new team that they've said they're not planning on using. They just have a little end credit.
Yeah.
Here's,
the Guardians are still out there somewhere
doing something. And maybe they'll show up eventually again, but they're not planning on making movies about this new set of Guardians. And so I felt like Rocket was like told, like, you have a higher purpose, but moviegoers, you'll never know it. He's in charge of the Guardians.
He just is a Guardian.
Good for him.
But I kind of like Guardians has always had, because it's very much a space opera or a space western, so like it always has had that. So like it needed to have a ride off into the sunset moment, and that was what this was. Although it does end by saying that Star-Lord, the legendary Star-Lord, will return. But it doesn't say Peter Quill. So we're just hoping for Kitty Pryde.
I mean, I'd take Peter Quill, but there are more interesting things we could do.
There are other Star-Lord options. Lundy has opinions.
Well, Lamb Chop has opinions. Lundy's just the conduit. I felt like this film was very anti-animal testing, and people who walk away from this and then still put their money towards cosmetic brands that test on animals should figure themselves out.
Didn't get the point.
Some of the Marvel films, actually a lot of the Marvel films, have Ulta collaborations, including Love and Thunder, which I have a makeup palette for. And if they made a makeup collaboration and it wasn't very explicitly cruelty-free, I think this would have been a big miss. I think that they just decided to not do that sort of collab for it, which was probably smart.
The collab for Guardians is with HelloFresh. It is a snack collab, and like the milk jug that Rocket drinks out of and like stuff like that are all things that you can now acquire.
Capitalism
at its finest.
It's really wild sometimes. I think it was very, very good that they did a Guardians holiday special, because it meant that like the Nowhere world and like all of those characters also had higher stakes, and you felt like you knew what was going on. And also it's, you know, very Marvel Comics to have holiday specials, but it's not necessarily something that the MCU has done very much of, if any of.
No, I don't think there's another holiday special.
There are some like animated specials, right?
There's some like animated miniseries, but I don't know that there's another necessarily specific
like
holiday one.
Holiday special. So I'm really glad that they made that before breaking up the team. And
Gamora, so part of the reason that we talked about like the characters being themselves and like actually having their own moments is that this version of Gamora, they did not, because I was terrified that she was also just going to like fall for Peter Quill.
Fall in love with Peter Quill.
We're done.
I maybe would have been okay with falling in love with Peter Quill if that was the point of this movie, but if they made that something that was happening in this movie alongside it being Rocket's backstory and, you know, and that would have been frustrating. I think that like a true enemies to lovers would be kind of fun, but that's why I am now a Nebula Peter Quill shipper.
Yeah, but I think that the way they treated Gamora in this was great.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like she had come off of being Thanos' daughter in an earlier, I think technically with the way that the MCU pulled that, even earlier than we had encountered her in Guardians. Because the Thanos that like came to Earth at the end of Endgame had not acquired any Infinity Stones. And he is the one that acquired the staff for Loki in the first Avengers, which is before Guardians in timeline.
Yeah.
So like this is even like she is pre whatever break ended up with her like leaving and ending up with the Guardians.
Well, and we'd maybe have to look into it more, but I think there was also a little bit of like swippy swappiness as far as like how the world treated like her and Nebula, and how Thanos treated her and Nebula before they like left, because also Nebula left at the same time as her in this timeline. Like they were together rather than Gamora like peeling off and leaving Nebula. Like that was kind of the big difference, is that they're well, and I think it's because it happened before, so like it was the moment before that happened. But I liked that she was treated very different, and she said like, that's not who I am, and then they stuck with that, and I really enjoyed that as character development. Like I liked that she had found her own family and her own life in a different way than other Gamora had. And they didn't just tell us the same story again.
Yeah.
Which they easily could have done. But they chose to make a better movie than that.
They did.
Which was...
And I think it was a good goodbye to all the characters. Like, I think that it was well done. Groot actually spoke English, which was weird. Oh, my other favorite thing about the film is that new Gamora does not understand Groot. And that's the best part. He says, I'm Groot, and she's like, yeah, I know what your name is. And he goes, no, this is... And at one point she's like, you guys are just making up what he says.
But then she figures it out.
Yeah, she does eventually understand
and he knows. And then he does speak English, which I think makes sense for ending the series. It's gonna make some like dude bro nerd MCU guys mad, and I love things that make the dude bro MCU guys mad.
I think Groot speaks in the comics. I haven't read a ton of Guardians, but I'm pretty sure that Groot can speak sometimes.
Yeah, it's more of a like chooses not to.
Yeah. Yeah, but I liked a lot of the way that they did it. Like James Gunn does a great job, which we know, because James Gunn sweeps into other places and we like things like the new Suicide Squad. So he creates enjoyable content and has a clear vision of what he wants to do.
Good, like, ensemble.
Yeah, he's very good at ensemble.
Which I think is hard to do, and was well done in this. And also managed to like be about one of the characters without minimizing everyone else in the story, and without bending everyone else to that storyline. This film is also like a little grosser than we expected it to be.
It is really disgusting, because they like visit a planet that's like a biological planet, and all of it's pretty gross. And the main bad guy, the High Evolutionary, makes a lot of kind of gross creatures. But another thing that we liked about this is that we've talked about this film for, I don't know, we've probably been talking for 12 minutes. And we haven't mentioned the High Evolutionary once, the big bad guy, because he doesn't matter.
He's an interesting villain without being someone that we had to see a ton of. I mean, we saw him in flashbacks, so we saw him in the context of
what he meant to Rocket's life,
which is enough to make you dislike him, but also means that we don't need to, until the very end, flash to what he's doing, which I feel like is something that in sort of sci-fi, fantasy, superhero action movies we have to do a lot. We have to go see what Darth Vader's doing on his ship. We have to like flash to Thanos killing a bunch of people, and just do like a cryptic, here's what the bad guy's doing. Now back to our team. And I don't hate that mechanic, but it was nice to have a movie that didn't use that mechanic.
And where he as the bad guy didn't matter. Like, I loved that he thought he was a god, but in the scope of this story and everything that happened, he was utterly insignificant. No one really took the time to even figure out who he was. Like, it just, it didn't matter to our characters.
We don't get his backstory. We don't get, like...
We don't even get, like, who he is in the larger universe. Like, there was a little bit that was like, he invented a bunch of species. And then Quill was like, okay, who cares? Like, let's just go get him because he has rockets, so...
Yeah, more, like, family-oriented. I think the one place that this film, I assume, was whittled down...
It was still 2.5 hours.
It was 2.5 hours, but I assume that some things were taken out of it, because I do feel like this film was approaching a lot of ethical topics without actually successfully doing anything about them. Like, there's an entire genocide in this film.
Yes.
And we just gloss over it. We just move on immediately. We, I think, don't have the people on that planet speak English or, like, speak a humanoid language so that we don't have to
deal with the fact that we let them all get killed.
That we, like, literally spent at least 3 or 4 minutes with a family from this universe who is blown up. We don't see them blow up.
Not them specifically.
But we see the whole planet and a lot of people blow up.
Yeah, the body count in this film might be the non-Infinity War highest.
Yeah, it's a lot of dying. And also has a couple of throwaway lines about, like, when they're saving the animals. Oh, I thought we were only doing higher life forms. Oh, yeah, I thought so too. But they save all of the animals.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, it's like, yeah, good on you. But also, a whole planet was destroyed and no one's upset about it. We make a whole big deal about how the Guardians don't kill, and then they kill a ton of people on a ship. I mean, they're bad guys, but we kill a lot of bad guys after making a big deal about not killing people.
Like worker bees?
I feel like, I feel like there was a scene that must have been cut where Peter kind of broke a little bit because he also, we watch him kill someone. We watch him ram someone into the ground and then drown them and then get a pretty horrific look at their bloated, dead face.
That's true.
Like, it's a bit much. I feel like something happened. I mean, Star-Lord literally tells Groot to kill them all.
Yeah.
Twice.
Yep.
After, at the beginning of the movie, making a huge deal about how
not killing people.
Gamora isn't anything like Gamora because the old Gamora wouldn't have killed people like this or jumped to killing people like this. Which is just a little confusing. So I think the ethics of this film are a little weird. It didn't stop me from enjoying it, but it is a critique.
Mm-hmm. We had fun.
Oh, yeah. It's a fun movie if you
highly
can avoid
recommend
the genocide.
this film. It is, like we said, a little gross. So just be warned about that. Like, it's definitely, I think, the grossest of the MCU films.
It doesn't take anything too seriously when it comes to the, like, grossness.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are really grossed out by, like, pus, and
by, like,
skin,
body fluids
and like, not blood.
Yeah, that's
there's
true.
not, like, a whole lot of blood.
But there is, like,
or gore,
ichor
but there's, like, yellow fluid.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also a decent amount of, I mean, there's a lot of animal cruelty.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we rip the face off of a man.
Yeah, there's some blood there.
Which is kind of a lot.
And there's a little bit of blood when Rocket destroys his face in the flashback, too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's definitely got, like, a gorier element, I would say, than most of the MCU.
Like, just more of, like, an ick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just like a...
like an ick factor.
Ew.
But it was so good. I'm very, very pleased.
Made
with
me
this
want to
film.
watch all of the other
Guardians.
Guardians films.
Yeah.
In order to, like, then watch it again, because it really is a good finale and makes you, like, nostalgic for the other
story for the end of the Guardians.
Mm-hmm. And it makes you want to, like, experience the whole journey.
So if you've seen all the Guardians films, like, don't sleep on this. Even if you have decided, like, the current phase of Marvel isn't for you, you're gonna like this film.
Yeah, it feels more like other stuff.
It's a continuation of the other ones. And if you have dogs, you'll like it because Cosmo's great.
He's a very good dog.
Mm-hmm. If you have animals in general, I feel like it's a very pro-animal film.
But you might cry a lot at the tiny raccoons.
You will definitely cry. Like, Megan and I both teared up.
Yeah, because they were cute little animals. And then they killed them.
Yeah, but it's just tug your heartstrings kind of film. I heard somebody say, and I feel like I kind of agree with this, that, like, James Gunn has this incredible ability to make you giggle, and then suddenly you're crying, and you're like, wait a second,
I was giggling!
And that's how this film feels. So, hope you watch this entire review that I'm definitely not going to edit. And Megan, you ready? And I'll see you tomorrow.